Welcome to Not Till Now, a podcast about courage. I'm your host, Brit Stueven. Season 1 features conversations with performers and collaborators from the debut live show on January 28th, a night where firsts took the stage. In these chats, we'll talk about fear, the creative process, and what happens after you say yes to something you've never done before. Here we go. Welcome! I'm so excited to introduce you to today's guest, Neha Mandhani. Neha was the first person to say yes to Not Till Now when it was basically just a date on the calendar. She flew in from California to share a story about what happens when life interrupts your plans and something truer takes shape. Neha is a leadership coach, a mom, and a writer. And today we're talking about trust, writing in the middle of the story, and what it felt like to step onto the stage. So Neha, welcome. I'm so glad you're here.
Britt, thank you so much. It's such an honor to be with you here, truly.
Yay! So let's go back to last summer when you originally applied for Moms on the Mic.
Yeah.
But you were overqualified for the first-time speaker spot because you have done various speaking gigs.
Mhm.
And I was like, hey, but I am doing this event in January. I've never done it before. I just have the date and the venue. You want to come out and be in that?
Yeah.
And you said yes. And we hadn't even met before. And I want to know what made you say yes.
Yeah. Thank you, Britt, for asking that question. I'd say I said yes for 3 reasons. One, I know we hadn't met in person, but when we had the conversation, I felt very seen. I felt like you could see who I was and who I could become and how I could contribute more than I could see myself. And, I think of my job as a parent. I think of my job as a coach. Oftentimes I'll tell clients, I'll tell my kids when they're doing something hard, like, Mom, I can't do this. It's like, well, I know you can do this. I believe in you. And even though you didn't say those words, I think there was something about what you gave me in that moment, Britt, when I'm like, well, I don't know if I'm ready. I don't know what I'm going to say, but I think I gave you enough material of what I think I wanted to say on stage. And you were like, I want you on the stage. And there was something about your trust in me reinforced that trust in myself. And I'm going on a complete tangent here, but I just think there is something about self-trust and that interdependence. And it's different from external validation, right? It is more about that interdependence and self-trust that I think you enabled for me. So that was one reason. The second reason I said yes was, and I know we'll go into it and people who've seen my talk probably have a sliver of, my story. Like, it's always lovely to hear the story of an author or TED Talk, whoever, like, once it's all done and it's polished and it's successful. And I don't think we share enough stories of what happens in the middle.
Nope.
And I think getting a chance to share my story from the messy middle, like, I don't know what my story is going to look like with regards to my project, my Not Till Now project, all of that. But I felt it was important. Like, if I'm given a chance, if life is giving me that chance to tell that story from the middle, to go tell it, I think there is value there. And I think the third reason I said yes was honestly an act of love, a gift to myself. I have been that kid who loves being on stage. I loved speech and debate as a kid. I have memories of traveling, getting on, not as much of getting on a plane to go speak, but getting on a train to go speak.
Yeah.
And I think the last big presentation I did on stage was as part of my corporate America life. And it went really well, all of that. And I was co-presenting, and I remember telling my co-presenter, I'm like, I love being on stage. I want to do more of this, but I really don't want to talk about a product launch. I want to tell a story that I want to tell.
Yes.
And when you gave me that chance, I was like, I'm going to say yes. I'm going to bet on myself. And, it was scary, right? I'm getting on a plane. I'm leaving my family. There is a risk on every level. There is a cost involved. And yet it felt like a full body yes. And I would bring it back to you, Brett. Like, I could trust you to be able to enable 2 and 3 for me.
Yes, and I felt that too. It was this weird immediate bond, this immediate trust. Of course, I saw some of your clips on your LinkedIn profile of some of your speaking, and I had read the story that you submitted that was in the Moms on the Mic magazine after all, and I knew that there was this book that had been started, and I knew that even though the full story that you told at the event hadn't been written yet, and if you were gonna come out to Colorado, that it needed to be on that particular stage, and it was so cool to see it happen.
Yeah. Thank you.
Did you have any moment of "What am I doing?" before you got on the plane?
I don't want to sound arrogant, or I don't want to put off anyone who may be feeling that way getting on a stage or saying yes to something. But I didn't feel that way. And it was not because, oh, I'm this special celebrity. I didn't feel that way for two reasons. One, I think, again, I know I'm going to sound like a broken record. I felt like I was going to you. I was going to someone where I felt safe. And I know that about myself, that for me to do my best work, like whether it's my kids know this, if I'm dysregulated, I'm likely not going to say yes to what they're asking me. Like if I am not feeling safe with my husband, I am not bringing my best, right? So for me, that
Right.
psychological safety, that belonging feels so important. And I knew that with you, but I also, like, anytime I had that fear, so it was not like I never had any moment of what am I doing? Maybe that's like exaggeration, but I don't think I stayed there because I could tell myself these people who are coming to watch want to be there. It's not their boss dragging them
Yes.
into a room. They are choosing to be there on a Wednesday evening. They know they're not coming to listen to a polished New York Times bestselling authors or, TED speaker. They're coming to listen to everyday people tell everyday stories. And I think for me, that took the pressure off of feeling like I have to dazzle and change anyone's life. I was just like, I am just going to show up with good quality work. Like I was very
Of course.
proud of the work I had put in. And I think the preparation, the audience safety gave me the courage to be like, yes, that is fear. You can feel your fear, but we
Mhm.
don't live in that fear for the next 2 hours and get nervous and not get on a plane or anything.
I love that. Yes, I love that. I had a similar thought
Mhm.
of the audience, and it didn't really kick in until maybe a few weeks before. I'm standing in
Mm,
the shower, and it just hits me. I'm like, all these people are deciding to be there. They're
yeah.
choosing to be there. They're not sitting there waiting to, eat me. Like, there's that primal instinct, right, from way back in the day where we're trained physically to think that if people are staring at us and watching us, that we're feeling like they're going to eat us. That's real. That is real. That is built into us. So we can't help but feel fear when we're
Yes,
public speaking.
totally.
But then the thought of, yeah, yes, these people were not assigned to this. They
Yeah.
chose this. And so they're gonna be great.
And on that note, Britt, I really want to take a minute and acknowledge like anyone who was present at the event listening to this episode, like a big, wholehearted, genuine thank you. I think it was such a lovely audience. Anyone who's thinking of coming back to any of Britt's programs, like please know that there was something sacred about being in that room, being on stage. People were laughing and crying and clapping and gasping. And I'm not just saying for me, like for all the other speakers.
Yes.
They were genuinely not just engaged, not just rooting for the speaker, but I also felt like they were rooting for themselves. Like the kind of synergy and the kind of magic that was present in the room because we were co-creating. I always tell my coaching clients, like, we're co-creating in a coaching session. And even though the audience was not using their like words and we were not having a conversation, it truly felt like we were in a sacred space having a conversation where the audience was listening to people's stories and taking a part of the audience, like taking a part of the speaker's stories and melding them, connecting them with their own stories. And that was to me the most sacred part of being up on stage. I was backstage watching the audience sort of engage with a lot of other speakers, and I could just feel that love, that connection, that transformation happening in the audience when someone's doing stand-up comedy. Like just
Yes.
what a gift to witness that as well. So definitely a plug for anyone who's listening. come back to Brit's next event. She didn't ask me to say this, but I'm genuinely
It felt like a dream. Almost didn't feel real. I imagined it being that way, but I didn't think it could be that way. And it was even more than I imagined. People were really, truly touched by it. And, that goes back to you and all of the performers. And it was an exchange. It wasn't just watching you all perform. It was also them, exactly, taking it in and feeling something for themselves too, and finding themselves in your story. And oh, it's so good. So I'm curious what your process for writing and practicing was, because
Mm.
you had no notes and you crushed
Well,
it.
I had notes, Brit. I didn't use them, but I did have them. You helped me put them on the podium, so I did have them.
Yes, yes, yes.
For those of you who haven't heard my talk, I'm writing a book. So I had a ton of content. And I think for me, the first hardest part was what is the most relevant story for this audience, for this stage? So I had picked up a couple different lenses of what I think I could tell on stage. And the wonderful Brit helped pick and be like, I think for this audience, this story will make sense. And so I had a few different chapters of the book, a few different essays, a few different sticky notes. And, it's fun, but it's also hard to like take all of that and be like, okay, now I have 10 minutes to tell a story on stage. So that was my process of just taking all of those things um, and then writing something down. Um, Brit was very generous in, reviewing, cutting down things, editing. And then my first step in the process was, okay, how close or far am I from 10 minutes? And I
Right.
was fortunately in that, I think it was like 11 minutes or so when I was practicing. And then I started reading my talk aloud. And when I would talk, I was like, oh, I say this thing this way, even though I've written it this way. And so I made more edits. And then I think I was at a good stopping point. I'm like, okay, the script is good. It's 10 minutes. And then my process was true. Like I memorized it. I wanted to memorize everything. And for me, unlike a lot of people, I know some people just like to have talking points. I knew if I had memorized my talk, I could then embody what I was trying to say and I could be present with the audience versus having to worry about what comes after this and what do I say after this. So I could truly be present. And I was like, I felt really alive, really present being on stage. And I also think, for anyone listening, thinking about doing something like this, having done more sort of transactional talks versus such a heartfelt story, I think it is easier when it's your personal story or something you really want to share with the world. No one had forced me to tell this story, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I think that definitely helped me both in the practice and in the delivery. Now, I will say, anyone listening, thinking about going on stage, I am that weird lady who is very nervous before going on stage. I know you asked me, like, did I have thoughts on what am I doing? What am I going, like, I wasn't doubting that I shouldn't be on stage, but I was definitely very nervous. And I think tactically, I was nervous. I was the most nervous about shit, like, what if I go over the 11 minutes? So I think that was like a big part of my anxiety. And also, what if I forget something? And again, my process for navigating fear was like, okay, Neha, like you forget something. So then what? Well, okay, I turn behind. I'm going to pick up my notes. I'm going to read through it. I'm going to then remember. And
Yeah.
I really thought like I am sitting with a very loving audience. They are not there to evaluate me. They're not here to pick 1 out of 10 and, put them to another talk or anything. And so when I named my fears, I'm like, okay, what can go wrong? What is the worst that can happen? And I realized that the likelihood of something like that happening was low. And even if it were to happen, I was going to be okay. I was going to be safe. The sky would not fall down.
Yeah.
And I think for me, that preparation, that planning does help me, like, sort of do all the risk management, if you will. And so then when I was on stage, I really felt like I was there to tell my story, to connect, to be with everyone. And I'm also a weird lady who has sort of a bad hangover once I get off stage, or I know
Yeah.
I'll have some version of this once I get off this conversation as well.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Um, and I think we need to normalize. For many of us, that's like part of the process. You open up a part of your heart,
Yeah, yeah.
feel vulnerable, and you get out and you're like, I shouldn't have said that, or maybe that didn't go as well. And just to like surrender and trust that, you've done your part.
Yes. And it is so important with anything, going back to what you're saying about really taking the thing and asking, what's the worst thing that can happen? And then have a plan of what you will do. And that,
Yeah.
I mean, it's so simple, but
Yeah.
so powerful. So, man, yeah, I remember when we were adopting our son and we were going to be going to court, and there were a lot of questions that they were going to be asking us, and I took every potential question that I was seeing in the Facebook group, because there
Mm.
was a Facebook group dedicated to Korean adoption during COVID, and there were like 20 to 25 different questions that everyone was sharing that they were getting. And
Mm.
David and I practiced those in our 2-week quarantine in the hotel room that we couldn't leave. It's a whole thing.
Mm.
Anyway, the whole point is that we practiced and practiced and practiced to the point that when we were in court and they were asking me a lot of point blank questions about my mental health and my medication and all these things, I was shutting down, but I was able to just tap back into that memory to just get through it. So that muscle memory is so important. And then you were actually present and embodied it. I completely blacked out, but it is so important to be prepared. I mean, even Ed, he said that he practiced so much and prepared for this pretty much more than anything that he's ever done. And that's the stuff that you don't really see.
Yeah.
Did you find yourself, were you practicing in the car, in the shower, doing dishes?
Yes.
How do you
Yeah.
read it a lot? Do you
Yeah.
listen to yourself talking? How do you nail it in?
Yeah. Okay. I will answer that. But before that, I don't know, Britt, about your son's adoption story. So I feel like I need a part two, like one-on-one with you on that, like in
Oh,
private as well. But for our conversation right now, I think there are two things that I want to sort of reflect back, and I think everyone can take away is we all can benefit from a certain level of preparation, and that's going to look different for each person and each situation. And you were going into something that was so high stakes for you,
yeah.
and so for you, that preparation actually helped you feel confident, connect with your inner power, connect with your own wisdom, connect with your confidence. And even though you didn't say it, but I felt it. And I'm also like, that's sort of my process is we can prepare. And then when we're in the arena, whether it's on a stage, whether, you're in that courtroom being asked those questions, or, like in my story, life gives you this really unexpected diagnosis, like really difficult, unexpected diagnosis. We also have to sort of find a way to be present and to surrender. And that dance between like what can I control versus what can I not control is it's so important because and I think both are important. That we always have agency, right? In your story, you could prepare, you could practice those questions. That gives you a sense of agency going into the room. And yet if you would have been asked a question you hadn't thought through, yeah, maybe you could take 30 seconds, gather your thoughts, but then you don't control. If they judge you and penalize you for taking 30 seconds or they don't like your answer or whatever. And I think both are true in life. Because I think sometimes we feel like, oh, if I prepare, then everything will be fine. Or surrender means I should just surrender and like,
You're right.
everything will be fine. Like somehow I can manifest everything and, all of that. And I think we need both, or there is room for both in life,
Yes.
whether on stage or just living our daily life.
Yeah. That's so important. And I'm so glad that you brought that up because, yeah, you don't know. You don't know what's coming. But I like how you said that if something were to happen, you knew that you were going to be safe.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah. Back to your question, what was my like tactical preparation process? For some reason, the car, I thought I would practice in the car. Like, oh, I have two young kids and I'm driving them places and I do have enough alone time in the car. I thought I would practice in the car, but I did not practice in the car. I also did not practice in front of the mirror. For some reason, like I get conscious looking at myself in the mirror.
right? Yeah.
So for me, I practiced a lot in the bed. So I had printed sheets. So I had 6 or 7 sheets. There was something, I think, feeling safe in the bed, like being in a cozy blanket, strangely enough. But once I had things memorized, then I would stand. I did a lot of like just standing in my room. I did not practice in front of an audience. I wanted to. I thought I would in front of my husband and kids and just maybe do it in front of a few friends. But somehow that didn't happen. So almost all of my practice happened alone. I didn't have AI record me or anything like that either, though in hindsight, maybe that could have been a good idea. I also memorized it in chunks. So I took a page, I took, sort of sections at a time, memorize the sections. And then it was interesting. I would memorize section 3. And then when I would do 1, 2, and 3, I would forget something about 1, or I would forget something in 3. And again, as you're asking me this question, one of the things I'm realizing about my process is in some ways it was like a meditation practice, right? So when you're meditating, your mind wanders. For me, my favorite practice is, okay, then you come back to the breath.
Right.
And I can tell you every time I practiced, even the day off, I would forget something. And I would then look up on the page. And again, I think for me, it was also practicing that I would be okay. If the worst
Yeah.
thing is I have to read a line on my sheet, I was going to be okay. And I think I had done that enough times where I think when I went up on stage, my body was able to trust that it was going to be okay.
Oh, that's such a cool thing to practice, that you're
And I
gonna
don't
be
think I was
okay.
consciously practicing that, but as I'm reflecting back with you, I think I was not just practicing content. I was practicing that if I forget something and go back on the page, it's going to be okay. It's kind of like back to the meditation. You get distracted, you start thinking of grocery and laundry or whatever, and then you come back to the breath and it's okay. And I remember so many meditation teachers will tell you a successful meditation practice is not when your mind has not wandered. It's when you remember that you can come back. And I think,
Oh.
for me, I think I was subconsciously practicing that. It's like if you forget something, and it happened a lot of times, I would not need to read my notes while I was practicing, but I would take a longer pause. And then at the end, I'm like, okay, 10 minutes, 57 seconds instead of 45 because I paused a little bit longer. Um,
Mhm.
but again, I think I was building that trust with my body, being on stage, that it's going to be okay.
Well, it showed that you felt safe and comfortable. So
Thank you.
let's talk about the book. How are you feeling about it?
I'll answer the first part first. In theory, I have my first draft of the book, I think 50, 60,000 words on a Google Doc.
Wow.
Yeah, thank you. And I have, a proposal, which for those of you who are new, you write the book, but also if you're trying to work with a publisher, you have to write a proposal, which is essentially a business plan trying to convince a publisher why they should invest in you and in publishing this book. So I have that ready as well. But here's what I'm learning. And this is not to steer anyone away, and also not to steer myself away, because there are times when I'm like, I should just give up on this process. Traditional publishing is very competitive. And, I have loved to write, and I'm writing a memoir, which is in so many ways closer to fiction in terms of the storytelling and the scenes. And there is a lot about the craft of writing that is new to me. Like, I have typically written blog posts, I have written on social media. I have the first draft without too much of pain, if you will. But I've not taken like a 6-month writing class. And how do you write a scenes? How do you connect a scene? And all of that good stuff. So I am working with an absolutely wonderful proposal writing editor coach who's really helping refine my craft and helping take my proposal to a place where we think some publisher will be willing to invest and get this book in the hands of more people. So I feel very committed to my craft, and I feel very committed to this project. The writing, all the stuff I'm learning about writing, about my own self, about life, about the world, is deeply, deeply, deeply fulfilling. If you heard my talk, I like plans, I like certainty, I like to know answers. So, people come and ask me, so when are we getting the book? Or like, when will it come out? Or my 9-year-old son had the sweetest thing. He's like, can you ask Penguin to make your book, Mama? Like, why can't you ask Penguin? And it's like, how sweet. Only if it was that easy. I could ask Penguin to make my book. Is the publisher going to say no? Well, I wish I can know that today, so then I can go self-publish. Or if I can do these 5 things, then my likelihood increases by X%. I would go do those 5 things. So I think writing a book and then obviously the business of then getting a book out in the world has so much uncertainty, has so many unknowns. And if anything, I would say, in addition to the writing and all the things I'm learning about life and writing, I think I'm really learning to live in the unknown and to look at all the things happening in the world, geopolitical tension to climate change to like everything that feels hard in the world. My brain very quickly goes into, well, shouldn't you be tackling climate change, Neha, instead of sitting and trying to figure out how to write a book? And I think
Oh,
sometimes you can say it's a very clear inner critic voice, but a lot of times I've realized it's the part of me that likes to, optimize and do the best thing with this one beautiful, precious life. But again, back to your question, how do I feel? I think every time I slow down and truly check in with myself, it's very clear that for now, this is what my body, my heart wants me to put energy into is write this book and hopefully go on more stages like yours, Brit, and tell the story. I share all of that messy middle behind the scenes that as much as I love it and I want to do it, there are enough reasons and enough moments when it does feel hard, when I don't know what I'm doing,
oh,
when I
well,
don't know
yeah.
what's going to happen, all of that. Um,
That's absolutely that's the process,
yeah.
though, and that's how you know that you're doing something new and
And
doing something
hard. Yeah.
scary,
Yeah.
or there's moments of doubt and panic, and
Yeah.
it just comes with the territory.
Yes. Yes. If there's a reason writing a book and publishing a book is hard
For
because of
sure.
all the unknowns. If it was that given and straightforward, I would have probably written a book 20 years back.
So that brings me to, what do you hope this book gives people? And what is your big why for writing it? Because I know that when I was writing and self publishing my own, and even after the
Yeah.
publishing part, and even when I was, getting bad reviews at one point, the world would steer me in certain ways and tell me certain messages that it had to be a certain way and it had to have a certain measure of success.
Yep.
And so, what's your why?
Yeah. I love that question. I would say I have 2 whys. One is I'm truly writing this book to honor my love of writing and my commitment to this craft. I've I've never had so many people come up to me and just say after my illness, like once people knew, oh, she's not going to die, she's going to be okay. Well, you have to write a book. I think in that moment there were so many people who could see that I can. I'm meant to do this. I can do this even before I could see it for myself, right? And again, it's not that there was, well, because people told me I have to deliver something to them, or if nobody told me I wouldn't have done it. But I think there's something very sweet for me, regardless of the commercial success, whether Penguin decides to make my book, quite likely no. But again, who knows? I think to me this book in so many ways is a love letter to my soul. It's a love letter to the people who cared for me through my illness. So there is that very sacred lens of wanting to write this book. The second big why for me is I really believe in the messages and the lessons of the story. And I really feel like, especially as we think of, where AI and capitalism and big tech and, like what all of that is trying to take us away from our core humanity, from our interdependence, from our capacity to care and love for one another, to connect with ourselves. I really feel like the messages and the stories in this book are even more relevant today than ever before. And the way I'm writing this book is it's not a prescriptive like go do these 5 things to live a happy life or to, manage potential illness that may come your way. But it's really my story, my journey. And I'm really writing this book with an intent of, I hope this book gets people to pause and be like, oh yeah, what would I have done? Or what do I want to do differently? Or what do I have in my toolkit if this was to happen to me? Or wow, I think I would have done the same thing too. In some ways, it's a full circle moment right now. Is, as I was telling my story on the stage, I didn't talk to people while I was presenting, but I felt that connection. And that's what I hope I can leave the reader with is, wow, me too. Or this is my story too, even though I haven't had this specific illness, and which I hope nobody does, but, life. I really hope that people feel less scared of life's disruptions and the unexpected that invariably life is going to bring. And I hope people can remember that we're all going to be okay. Even when things don't go as we hope they would go, even when things don't go as per plan, I hope people can trust themselves that they'll find their way through whatever life brings our way.
Yeah, I love that. I as you were talking, I was going back to your story that you shared on the stage and that moment you had with your brother
Mm,
when
mm,
he totally shifted the perspective for you. And
yeah,
I for the people who weren't there, do you
yeah,
wanna take us back to
yeah,
that?
yeah. I was in the hospital for 3 weeks. Of the many things that my illness brought, I also had a lot of very intense pain. And there was one evening where, I mean, my baseline pain was high, but this was probably 2 degrees higher. My sweet little brother comes up to me. He's like, "Do you want a massage?" His hands barely touch me. And I literally yell, I'm like, "Stop, stop. This is just too painful." And, like a couple minutes later, like I'm still in that pain and just this reminder of like, gosh, like it sucks to be in so much pain. And I just blurt out, I'm like, I'm never going to travel again. I'm never going to eat street food again. We still don't know what exactly triggered my illness, but there is a good chance that a stomach bug that I caught while traveling was, what triggered this autoimmune response. So again, it just felt like, okay, where do I have agency? Okay, Neha, you play it safe. You plan, you prepare, you don't get on a plane. Like literally, I mean, I know it sounds so funny right now as I've recovered, but truly in that moment, I was like, what if like I was on the plane and this had happened? Which again, like, I'm not crazy to be thinking like this. I know someone who had a stroke in her 30s on a plane. And,
No.
by the time she had medical treatment, I mean, she's alive, but she literally cannot work. Like she was an engineer, cannot go back to an office, cannot drive her kids. So I wasn't crazy. I literally was thinking of that person in that moment. It's like, yeah, what if I was on a plane? What if you're on a remote island in Thailand, right? And you have this like, I don't know, some kind of weird, difficult illness. Anyway, so then my brother listens, and then he like a couple of minutes later he goes, well, watching you, I think I'm gonna travel even more because who knows? Like, it was just so matter of fact, and it was funny, I was telling my sister, and she's like, "Well, that's of course what he would have said." Like, I think I say in the talk is like, I literally wanted to be like, "No, no, like, just stop." Like, like, I not only did I want to protect myself, I also wanted to protect my sweet little brother. And, I was too tired in that moment, and like, I couldn't even say anything. But, that message was like, as I started recovering, that message was like, yeah, like, I am more careful when I eat street food. But again, like, you could have a stomach bug, you could make, and I think we've all had probably some incident in our life when like you might be making organic, like good, healthy, home cooked food and you still get a stomach bug, right? I mean, that's I think what my brother was trying to tell me is like,
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and that you really don't know what's
yeah,
going to happen. And I don't know. I mean, as the world gets crazier and things get more uncertain at times,
unpredictable. Yeah.
it's those it is those things that give me more urgency to just do the thing and say the things and the kind things and,
Yes.
like like,
Tell
tell
people
the
you love
people you
them.
love.
Okay, exactly. Go organize an event like this where you bring strangers and people together.
Right, because
Yeah.
now more than ever, we need to be in rooms where we are safe, where we are loved, where we are seen, and that's so cliche, but it is there for a reason. Okay, so I want to talk about what, if anything, has shifted for you since
Mm,
the show. So, was
yeah.
there anything that happened that night or that next morning or within this last week or so?
Yeah. I think for me it's confirmed my love again, back to my love for the craft of writing, but I would even say the craft of being on stage and telling stories on stage and doing the work that I'm doing. And like you said, I think the power of community. Again, I wouldn't say it's a brand new thing, but I think it's reaffirmed my faith in the goodness in our world. Because of course you go watch the news, it's hard to believe there is any goodness in our world. To feel so connected with people I didn't know. And I still, like, I don't know the names of people who were sitting in the audience, but I bet if someone came up to me and be like, I was in that room that day, like, I think I would have more love, more compassion, more connection. And so I think it's reinforced my hope in humanity, in the kindness of people, in in the capacity of the human spirit. Both thinking a lot about little p purpose and big P purpose, like the little p purpose of just human connection, and the big P purpose, like w- I I do the work that I did after spending 15 years in corporate America because of people's stories, right? Yeah, you can read the science of human change and all of that, but it's when you hear the story of someone saying, "Well, yeah, I used to do this and now I've tried this," or like I was sharing my story of like the number of times I heard a meditation teacher say something, and it's like, okay, when I finally needed to apply it, listening to you share how many people reached out to you and the things they want to do differently. Again, just I think that affirmation, that confirmation of what we can do together, our collective
Absolutely.
humanity, our collective capacity for a better world.
Yeah, and the power of watching people stand in their truth and share
Mhm.
something and do something courageous in
Mhm.
real time, it just unlocks something in everyone else. It gives this unspoken permission. It lights people up in ways they didn't expect. And if coming to this event,
Mm.
not knowing really anyone, I was wondering if it was going to be kind of a lonely experience because you kind of hear that when people go on tour or certain comedians, they travel the country and then they go and they perform in front of all these people and then they go back to their hotel. It almost becomes this lonely thing,
Yeah.
but it's interesting. Yeah,
Yeah, it's such a powerful lens. And I'm going to respond to that with like a big resounding, like, I understand where that can come from, but that was not my experience. Now, of course, if I knew about 25 best friends sitting in the room or whatever, I think it would be I think a different experience. But for me, I actually had a chance to connect with two like good friends in Denver before the event. I had two other people I knew sitting in the audience. Like
oh,
one of
yeah,
them
yeah,
literally
yeah.
was yelling, like, Eunice, thank you. She was just like, Neha. And that was so lovely. But I had a couple of friends on text kind of cheering me on the sidelines. So for me, like, even though people were not in the room, I spoke with my sister right before I got on stage and like literally came off and she's like, how was it? Right. So I think my husband like called me like 5 minutes after. It's like, how was it? So I don't think I felt lonely in that sense. But I think back to what I was saying with the audience. I think if I had a difficult audience or just like if there were cold faces and there was no expression or I was not like, I came all this way, like, you know, but they didn't want to be here. They didn't want me on stage. I think the fact that they wanted to be there and they were present. They were doing their highest work. I was doing my highest work. I was present. Um, like yeah, I don't think I told anyone that I was lonely and I hadn't felt that at all. Um, and I know before we hit record, I was saying like I think it would have been more meaningful for me to connect with more people like live, like during intermission after the event. That would have like made my experience richer. But as I said, I also get a hangover once I'm done talking, so I escaped. But no, I didn't feel lonely at all. Big thank you to the other speakers. Like we were all in the green room, everyone was cheering. Like I was meeting everyone in person for the first time. People are hugging each other, high-fiving you, looking out for you. So yeah, the photographer, the videographer, I felt like I was part of a team.
Oh, and you absolutely were. Tell me more about the intermission. You went out and chatted with a few women. I loved what you said, so I want you to share it with everyone else.
Yeah, so my specific version is 1 in 1 million, but I think the disease itself is, I think, 1 in 100,000 or something. And we're in a room of what, 250, 300,
320.
320. Okay. And one of the members in the audience comes up to me with her teenage daughter and says, Neha, I had the exact same condition. Like, what are the odds? And I am literally in tears. And I ask her, I said, can I give you a hug? And of course, the first question out of my mouth is like, are you okay? Are you fully recovered? And she had, thank goodness. And what was so touching was her daughter was probably my kid's age when her mom was sick.
Wow.
He goes, when you were talking, I was remembering so much of what you were saying is what my mom went through. And, here she was like such a confident, lovely young woman and just, having this memory of her mom. And you could just see the mom and daughter were there at the show together. And I was just, in that moment thinking about my kids. I'm like, wow, like when they are, in their teens, 15, 18, like what, like I just like, yeah, what would it be like for them if they would ever hear another mom share that story and like see I'm almost tearing up again.
Aw.
And then I had two other women come up to me and they didn't have my condition. They had other life stuff. And they were like, we were crying when you were talking and they were referring to specific things I had said. And again, back to your question, Brit, of loneliness. I'm like, what a gift we have as humans that I didn't know them, they didn't know me, but just in our shared pain, we could hug, we could connect. Like we were all
Yes.
in, like I was in tears listening to them share their story. They were in tears when I was on stage listening to my story. Um, and I think that is what reinforces my hope in humanity is like we have that capacity. I mean, I don't know who they voted for. I don't know like anything about them, but just that shared reminder of like we suffer, we go through unexpected stuff in our lives, and then we find our ways, we're transformed, we're changed by what changes us. It's the humanity that even helps us get through so much of human hardship because it's there, like between disease and illness and you have accidents, you have layoffs, you have like unexpected stuff in our relationships, not to mention everything we're seeing around the world. Like we need each
Right.
other more than ever before.
Yeah. Yep. And it's so cool. I know that it was, the circumstances of everyone connecting in the intermission moment was something painful, but it's really cool that there was this embracing, literal embracing with women you'd never met because there was an immediate connection over this shared experience of pain. It's kind of cool to just cut through all the
Mm.
small talk and you probably didn't even know their names and
Oh,
you're crying and hugging.
I still don't know, which like part of me makes me sad. Is like, yeah,
So that's really cool. I know it was not as much connection
yeah,
as you were hoping for, but I mean, just that sliver is I'm glad that you got that.
yes, I'm so grateful
So,
too. Thank you, Brett.
um, I have a few more questions, and I feel like this has been communicated, but I want to hear what you would say to someone who is scared to move forward on a
Mm.
dream or just do anything scary, calling the doctor or,
Mm.
you know, what would you tell that person
Yeah,
listening right now that's like, "I can't do
yeah,
this."
yeah. The first thing I want to say is I want you to have compassion and love for yourself and empathy for yourself. That, yeah, it's hard. Anyone who tells you if you've had a history of breast cancer in your family and you should go get your mammogram and you're scared, like I'm not here to tell you like, oh, come on, it's not scary. Of course it's scary, right? If you've had a series of rejection and you like that boy in your class or whatever, like you think your best friend might be someone you want to date and but you're scared, I get it. Like so I think just acknowledging. And it's different things for different people. For someone, it might be like, look, I don't know if I can run a mile, but I really want to. So I think the first step I would say is like, let's acknowledge that fear, that voice. And this where I would challenge someone is you can acknowledge that voice, you can have that compassion for yourself, but there are other voices as well in your head, right? And depending on what the thing is, see if you can find the simplest version. Like if you think you want to write a book someday, well, please don't. I mean, of course, if you think you're ready to go straight for the book, great. But I don't know, write 2 lines in your journal for yourself if you've never written before, right? Find the smallest, the tiniest bit of the thing that really matters. Like, what is it about the book, right? Is it the idea? Is it the writing? Like, is it the sharing? Find the smallest thing about the thing and go do it.
Yes.
So that's
Start
one.
small.
Start small. Now, of course, like if you have to make a mammogram appointment, like, for stuff like that, I would say like come back to your why, right? Come back to what is important about getting that mammogram appointment. Right. And
Right.
again, back to that self trust, that self belief, that self love. My biggest wish for the world would be we can all live in a world where we can all be our own greatest allies. Like, and I'm not talking arrogant narcissist behavior, but just like genuine, like, I believe in myself. I love myself enough that if this was my best friend, I would make sure that they schedule their appointment. Well, I love myself enough that I'm going to do it for myself. Can we practice a little more of that? And
I
then the
love
third
that.
thing I would say is, bring people into your world. Even something like if you're that scared, take a friend, or maybe find a friend who also needs to do it, who lives next to you, like schedule back-to-back appointments, hold each other's hands.
Yep.
You want to learn something new that feels scary, like find a class, find a teacher, and I'm not even saying you need to spend thousands of dollars, like find a peer accountability person, like listen to a podcast of someone navigating something or is maybe one step ahead of you on something that you want to go try out. You don't have to do it alone. None
Yeah.
of us have to do it alone. Please, let's not make it harder than it needs to be.
Yes, exactly. And it was funny because Natalie, who flew in for the event
Mhm.
as well, I told her in a text, I'm like, everything will feel better when we're all together. And
Yeah.
she's like, oh my gosh, I think that's what I needed to hear because and and I have always felt that way with anything that I do. When I'm on my own, oh man, my
Yep.
wheels are spinning. I'm thinking of every possible thing, all the what ifs, all the self-doubt. And then as soon as I get in the actual room with other humans, it all comes down because
Yes.
we're in this together. And it makes it so much better. So, yeah, I love that. That's so good. And then lastly, what
Yeah.
did this experience teach you about
Mm.
courage that you maybe didn't know before?
Mm. Mm. I'm gonna cheat a little bit because I don't think I would say I did not know this,
Perfect. Make it yours. Yes.
but I think it again like confirmed for me the power of experimentation, the power of taking little risks. And what I mean by that is I knew I loved being on stage, but I had never done anything like this before. And there was no amount of therapy or coaching or or a friend telling me like, oh yeah, Neha, this is your work to do, or you're going to be good at it, or you're going to enjoy it until I actually went and did it. Right. So I think what I mean there is both. Like if you are not sure, well, do I really want to start Substack or do I really want to go learn how to run marathons? Yeah, you can listen to 100 people who've run marathons and 500 people who said they will never run a marathon. You won't know until you go and try the thing to confirm whether that's yours to do in the world or not. And I'm not just saying vocation, yours to do, but even as a hobby, even as a volunteering activity, whatever it is.
Right.
There's no shortcut to experimentation to figure out who you are, what makes you come alive. And then the other part of that is, again, if someone came and told me, Brit, you would send me messages like, yeah, Neha, you can go up on stage. I mean, a part of me knew I could go up on stage, but again, I hadn't done something like this, like in this format, in this context in my life for a very long time. And yeah, I could trick myself and be like, I'm a badass, I can do this. But now I have real evidence. It's like, no, I did it once. Well, yeah, if someone now tells me I got to go speak in front of 500 people and tell a personal story, I'm like, it's still scary. Look, I'm not going to tell you, oh, it's just not scary anymore. But I do think it is a little bit less scary because I have like real data, real evidence inside of my body
Yes.
that I can do this.
The data. That's so important. Yeah, and like I was telling you, I mean, you're like, I can't believe you just started this podcast like right after the show. And have you always wanted to do this? And yeah, and for a number of years I've wanted to do this, but doing the show made this experience feel less scary. That made this feel more possible. And I had no idea if I could pull off a show of that caliber. I was going in with as many questions as everyone else did. Like, how is this going to go? I'm like, I don't know. I don't know either. And I came out of that thinking, oh my gosh, I did it. We did it. And so what else is possible? Like that was
Yes.
so
I love
cool.
that.
And like, the first time I emceed something, I was actually invited to do it because the main MC had gotten sick.
Mm.
And so I was helping plan this event in 2014. And yeah, the woman who was bringing it to Colorado, I was planning it for her as the marketing person, getting the speakers. And then, yeah, the last minute, do you want to MC? And I'm like, not really, but I will. And I didn't know what I was capable of.
Yes.
I'll never
Yeah.
forget praying in the parking lot with David before I went in because I was terrified. I'd never done anything like this before. But I love how the woman framed it to me too. She's like, oh, you just got to go up there, introduce them. And then when they're done, say something that they talked about and it's all good, And she just made it so simple. And it was that experience that
Yeah.
made me always have in the back of my mind, I want to do something like that again. And that's,
Yeah.
Moms on the Mic came about a decade later.
Yeah.
But you don't know what you're capable of until you try it or until someone gives you permission or until something just falls on your lap. I was even talking about that with David on a walk this morning, and we're going back to Korea and Japan, and we're bringing my niece, and we were talking about if I had been asked that question at that age, right when I graduated high school, would I have said yes to going to Korea and Japan? And what's funny, the first time I flew out of the country was to go to China with him for work. And the first time that he asked me if I wanted to go, I said, no, I have no interest. And then I told a few people that I had the opportunity and they're like, what?
Yeah.
There should be no question. You're going. You need to take this opportunity. And I went and it completely changed my whole perspective on traveling and other cultures and popped open a complete different part of my life and heart that I never could have thought possible, right? So I have completely gone off on all this, but you're getting me so excited about this.
Like, thank you for sharing that story about China because, yeah, like the Brit in 2026, like, yeah, why would I not say yes?
Yeah.
But yet, that I want to normalize, like, it's okay to feel scared. It's okay to feel like, I don't know if I want to do this. I don't know if I can do this. And
Right.
look at where you are today. But also, I think in your story, sometimes it helps to have someone tell us, like, no, honey, you can do this. You can get on a plane. You can go do this. And I think one of the things I haven't explicitly said, but I think it's implicit throughout our conversation is through all of this risk taking, courage, like doing and trying new things. I also want to be very sensitive that uh, in telling people find a safe place to go practice, right? I'm going back to the mammogram example. I actually had, when I had my first mammogram, the person doing the test was so kind, so gentle, so respectful, because it's such a vulnerable process. And I was thanking her. And you know what she told me, Britt? She said, Neha, when I had to get my first, and she's a medical professional, like, she knows everything. She's like, I had such a difficult experience. And I was so traumatized by my first mammogram experience that I didn't get mammograms for another 3 years.
Whoa.
Because she's like, it was just such a horrific experience for me. And so she's like, I am very committed, especially with the women who are getting it done for the first time, to feel safe and feel respected. And the reason I bring up that example is try to find people like that. You don't always get a pick. If you're going to go give a talk to an audience like Brit brings together. If you're going to go run your first race, don't pick the height of winter. Set yourself up for success as much as you can, right?
Yes.
So that you can come back to the arena, so that you can come back and be like, I could do a 1K, I can now do a 5K, I can do a 10K. Or, you know what? These Ks things are not for me. That's great. You'll find something else. But I really think there are some people for whom it's like, well, she said I can't do it. I'm going to show her I'm going to do it. And I'm going to change the naysayers around. If that's you, great. But I think most people actually, like, when you're feeling nervous, when you're having that self-doubt, when you're feeling anxious, you need a more supportive space to go practice the thing, to go ask for the thing. And is that world always kind? Is every boss in corporate America like kind? No. But find your places to go practice courage. It's a muscle, it's a skill. And I have hopefully proven that, like none of us are born with, I'm not scared to do anything in my life. Like, no, it doesn't. Anyone who tells you that is lying.
Right? No, I know. And so my pastor, as you know, spoke at the event, and I was actually kind of shocked that he was nervous. Like, I know he was sharing
Mhm.
something in a totally new setting and to a certain degree that he hadn't shared before either, his testimony in front of a non-church
Yep.
audience. And the fact that he told me that he was so nervous, I was almost dumbfounded because he has spoken thousands of times for decades. But so he had the reps of
Yep.
speaking and getting in front of a crowd, but he was still scared because it's
Yeah.
still something new. But he felt safe.
Yeah.
So,
And I'm gonna leave this like the reps and starting again with a metaphor I have often used with clients. I think about this a lot is, you think of a toddler learning to walk or whatever, 10-month-old learning to walk. When they fall, like when they can't walk, their butt hits the ground. Sometimes it's painful. They will cry. But I don't think 10-month-olds don't talk, or 1.5-year-olds can't fully express themselves. I don't think a child goes into self-doubt and says, "Oh, I'm not good enough to walk, so I'm not gonna try again." Right?
no.
They just
No.
they know it, it might hurt in the body or it might be disappointing, but they are so committed to like freaking wanna go break the table lamp or whatever it is they're trying to grab that they're like, "I am gonna find a way to walk." Right? And
Yep.
that's and again, I think for most children, not all, unfortunately, there is typically a supportive adult in the room or someone cheering them and telling them, like, honey, you can walk. Like, or I'll hold one hand and let's try again. And so I really hope we can all hold that metaphor of that 1-year-old child learning to walk to normalize. Like, it is going to suck. It is going to be hard. Crying is
Mhm.
okay, literally, metaphorically. But then find people who can tell you, honey, you can walk again. Do that for yourself. Don't just like, it's lovely when someone can do it for you, but also learn how to do it for yourself
Yes.
and then
Yeah.
go walk again, go try again.
Oh, man. Oh, I feel like I could talk to you the whole rest of the day about all of these things. This has been so amazing. I'm so glad that we
Nice
did this.
bread. Oh, yeah.
When your book does come out, how
It
can
will
people
come out at some point. I know it will.
it will, in some shape or form, it
It
will
will.
come out.
Yeah.
Where will people be able to know?
Oof, I like that. So I would say for now, follow me on LinkedIn. I will, absolutely share there. I love people reaching out. If someone wants to keep in touch, welcome to message me on LinkedIn. I am working on my Substack. I have it 80% done. So, like, once that's out in the world, maybe it will be by the time this airs. I love the idea of, like I said, sharing stories, creating community, talking about courage, talking about self belief, self trust. And I hope to create more spaces via my Substack, like digitally and hopefully in person too, to continue the conversation. And, I'm sure I will talk about the book more public
Yes.
out there as well.
Oh, I'm so excited. I didn't even know that you were creating a Substack, so that's really exciting.
Thank you. Yeah,
So,
I figured I want to honor the writer inside of me.
yay! That'll be so cool. Well, Neha, thank you so
Oh,
much.
thank you, Brett. Thank you. Such a gift to get to know you through this journey.
You too.
Mm.
Thanks for listening to today's episode of Not Till Now. I hope this conversation stirred something in you. Don't forget to check the show notes for a recap and ways to stay connected. And if you know someone in your life who needs permission, send this to them. See you next time.